Hello and welcome to the United Stand. How are you all doing? It's Wednesday, and what does that mean? But it is your Manchester United transfer news daily on the United Stand, where we give you all that real fan opinion on the latest Manchester United transfer news. And we're going to mix it up today. It's probably my favourite show of this January transfer window so far, because we've exhausted everything that's sort of out there. Your Malcolms, your Ozils, your everybody else. Lucas Moura, I don't want that to happen. Fingers crossed. It is just paper news. So I want to talk about players that realistically I would like us to sign, and players that we are sort of tentatively linked with, or we have been linked with over the last couple of months. Because at the end of the day, people are just putting their finger in the air and seeing which way the wind blows, doesn't it? And Andrea Belotti was mentioned yesterday as a replacement for Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and I think the fact with Zlatan is that, look, I actually agree with us keeping him last summer. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I thought it was a good idea because he was really cheap, and if he did half of what he did last season, then he's going to score you 15 Premier League goals and be really effective. The reality is he came back a little bit early. He's got himself injured again. I don't think he's back till February, and he didn't look very fit before. So let's hope we get something out of him in the last few months of the season, but ultimately we're not even in a title race. Is he going to bring much to the party now? It was a risk worth taking, but it looks like it's just going to, not be what we wanted it to be. But whatever happens with Zlatan, and even if he scores a few goals, he's got to go in the summer. There's no way we should have a 37-year-old Zlatan next season, and I think he deserves to go to China or the MLS and make a bit of money. So we need a replacement, and Andrea Belotti has been mentioned, and I think Torino's Presidente has announced that, look, maybe he's not scoring the goals he needs to at the moment, but if Coutinho's going for 142 million and Belotti does what he's capable of, then his £88 million release clause is exactly right, and some would say quite cheap. Because Belotti was linked to us last season. Can anyone remember last summer window, last season's summer transfer window, or last summer's transfer window? Bloody idiot. But there was a time around early June time where we were getting Morata and Belotti, and we were getting very, very excited. Well, who is Belotti? He's just under 6 foot. Italian striker. He's not been as prolific this season. I think he's got 8 goals in 16 games, but he's had a bit of a knee injury. He was strongly linked to United. Then he was potentially going to AC Milan. I bet he's glad he dodged that bullet. Age-wise, I'm terrible with ages, and I did write it down. How old is he? He is 24. So do Manchester United need to bring a striker in? I think £88 million is probably going to be too prohibitive for United when they're looking at people like Griezmann and Dybala anyway. But an out-and-out striker to sort of push Lukaku would be welcome. And I like Belotti. He is a fox in the box. You put the ball in the box and he's a real weapon. Not many of you will be old enough to remember Vialli. I spoke about this in the summer, but he's that sort of striker. He can score with both feet. He's good in the air. He's good at holding it up. He's good at running the channels. He's quick in the box. A real jack in the box. I would welcome him at Manchester United, and it was mentioned yesterday. So £88 million is what he would cost in the summer, though. It's not going to happen in January. I wouldn't have thought. I'd be very, very stunned if that happened, or shocked is a better word than stunned. The next player I want to talk about is Emil. Lukaku's an interesting one, but I'll talk about Emil Forsberg first. We were linked to him tentatively about 2 months ago. It was around the time of the international break. Swedish. Sort of plays out on the left for RP Leipzig, but can play the number 10 position. Very creative player, although much like Belotti, his stats this season have probably not been as good as some people would like them to be. But stats can be quite deceptive. Look, he's 26, which probably puts people off, because some people do get quite put off by people who are 26. They call them past it, even though they're actually absolutely in their prime years. Jesse Lingard's about 25, isn't he now? So Forsberg, RP Leipzig's done really, really well. Would we get him for a decent price? I think his contract, he only extended it last year to 2022, so he probably cost a little bit of money, but I think you could get him for about 35 million pounds. And as a sort of, Christian Eriksen type sort of player who could come in and start being really creative for us, I wouldn't, I'm thinking about January. That's what I'm thinking about. And the reality is, I think, look, we've done enough talk about Mesut Ozil, and I think unless something else really breaks about him, we probably shouldn't speak about him anymore. But I do think Ozil could happen. But if it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen in the last week of January, where Arsenal realise that he's not going to sign a new contract. They get a little bit nervous about the money side of things because he goes for free in May. And maybe United just tempt, United have got to know Ozil wants to come, and maybe they tempt Arsenal with a £30 million offer. But if we're not in for Ozil, as some people seem to think, then who are we in for as a number 10? Are we seriously just going to wait until the summer and try and get Griezmann or Dybala? Or are we actually going to try and solve a problem that is going to be a problem for the next 4 months of the season? That we don't create enough chances, because Lingard's been great in the number 10 role, scoring worldies, but he's not a creator. And Mkhitaryan, well, is he really going to create chances? I don't think so. And then that leaves you with Mata, who he never plays centrally anyway. So Forsberg's a player I've mentioned a few times. I really do like him, and we were mentioned about him about 2 months ago. You never know, is what I'd say with him. And I just want to throw in Timo Werner as well from RP Leipzig. He's a right-sided sort of attacker stroke wide player, early 20s, again just under 6 foot. Scored a lot of goals this season, very, very fast, very skillful, and again, the sort of exciting players you'd want at United, but potentially I think he's more of a striker, and certainly wouldn't solve that wing position. So I do like him. A lot of you mention him, so I've mentioned him. And Lukaku, Romelu Lukaku. Right, this story in relation to Lukaku is that Lukaku wanted to sign for Chelsea. Wow. Morata wanted to sign for United. This sort of story for me is just not helpful. It sells papers, I suppose, and it's quite cynical, and it's quite, Manchester United are away in Dubai. There's not a lot of transfer news at the moment. Yes, Man City are trying to buy Alexis Sanchez, but to be honest, look, well done, Manchester City. You're going to win the league. You might even win the quadruple, but does anybody actually care? I mean, they're such a new club. They're an oil tanker in the Premier League, parked at the top, and the FA should be bloody embarrassed that a club like that, they're giving away free tickets to Bristol City's at home. They're at home to Bristol City in the League Cup last night in a semi-final, and they're giving away hundreds of free tickets, and they still can't fill it. I mean, how embarrassing is that? It's just an exercise in how you can buy success in football, but it will be totally hollow because you've got no support. And they might be buying Alexis Sanchez, but no one cares. And Manchester United are away in Dubai, so that sort of kills a lot of conversation. So journalists need to create stories. So Lukaku didn't want to sign for United is the latest one. And you know what? So what? I think we're doing a lot of transfer shows, as we always do in the summer, and Lukaku to Chelsea was pretty much mentioned for a long time, as was Morata to United. And I think it's universally understood that Morata wanted to come to United. Lukaku either wanted or thought he was going to Chelsea, and then Mini Raiola and United were getting messed around by Madrid, and United just went to Mini Raiola and said, we're going to chuck a load of money at Lukaku, do you think he'd fancy it? Yeah, Romelu, do you fancy it? Oh, I'd love it. I'd love to go and play for a proper club with my mate Paul Pogba. See you later, Chelsea. And that's what happened. And we were after Morata, Chelsea were after Lukaku. Ultimately, both very good players, both very different players, both had mixed seasons, good and bad. I think both clubs got good deals. You could flip it around, and I think Lukaku suits United really well. I think Lukaku's very happy at United. I think it's a non-story. I think what is a story is that we are getting, sort of closing in on the halfway stage of this January transfer window. And as I predicted, I don't think there's much going to happen with United while they're in Dubai. Doesn't mean nothing's going to happen, but it's interesting how we're starting to look at... the Zlatan thing's very interesting. Zlatan's going to go. Do we need another striker? And I would throw that to you as a question, actually, for today. Would you replace Zlatan with another striker? Do you think the club will replace Zlatan with another striker? Or have we got enough with Lukaku, Rashford and Martial? Because actually, it's quite a big point. It's a topic that we'll probably be talking about over the next few months, because the initial reaction is probably, no, let's go and get Belotti, but we play one striker. So we're not going to buy somebody for 88 million who's not going to be the first choice striker. But then if you don't get a striker in, can you rely on Rashford and Martial? I think you can. I don't think we will get a striker in the summer, but I'll leave it up to you lot, because I know there'll be a lot of different thoughts around that. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I've enjoyed this one. It's probably one of the most enjoyable one I've done yet, because although I've been rambling on a little bit, we are talking about players that we're not dictated to by the press and their silly stories. We can actually put 2 and 2 together and come up with Forsberg and Werner and Belotti, although it was in the press. I think, is a player I really like, and you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. And I'm still 100% sure we're going to make a signing this month, by the way. Let us know your percentage. Thanks for watching. We are back tonight at 8 o'clock. I'll speak to you all soon. Don't forget to drop a like on the video. Lots of content on the United Stand. And I'll speak to you all later at 8 o'clock.